Oh, do you have a jingle?
You can make one up on the fly if you want.
We should start there with the jingle. Hold on. Here we go. Welcome to the Foil. What is it? Wing Life podcast.
Welcome to the Wing Life podcast, where we talk about wing foiling and the lifestyles of those who enjoy this great sport.
Anyway, I was going to call it the Foil Life podcast.
All right, brother. It's nice to finally meet you, man. I've seen you on YouTube and everywhere else, and thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Well, good to be here.
Yeah, so it's like midday over there. It's like 6 a.m. over here in Mexico. Whatever these time zones are, I can never get them straight. It's actually, what time is it?
You're
actually?
in Mexico?
Yeah, just in Laventana, Mexico for another month. So it is
what?
5:12 over
Why
here.
was I sending you Canadian times?
Well, because so I keep my laptop on Eastern Standard Time because I work remote. So all my people are back east in Canada. So I keep that there. But and if I start switching, I start missing stuff, and it's So anyways, but
just stick to one and stay with it.
Pretty much, it's 8:12. I go to bed at 10, which is 7 p.m. local time. So we do what we got to do. Are
you there? You're there just surfing?
Yeah, I finally came down. I had a bunch of buddies that have come here forever, and they're like, "You have to come down and check out this spot." So I'm at La Tuna, which is a launch. So it's a big ass bay. So I'm kind of like up in the 5-6 kilometers off the main beach. So we do a bunch of downwinders. Normally I do like wing foil downwinders and then upwinders after. It takes me about 45 minutes to climb about 5-6K, but I'm gassed. So I'm going to get a harness maybe next year. Talking about downwind foiling. It's a freaking mecca out here. It's a super easy one to do. Amazing. The road follows all the way around. You can get picked up at the beach, and then there's a massive beach at the bottom. So it doesn't matter where you end up. But it's pretty sick,
good
actually.
Wind, I imagine.
Yes, they got so far. Like primarily, I'm on a 3-meter wing all the time. I'm about 150 pounds. I have a little bit of a bigger foil, like a Gen 1 Armstrong. But when it goes off, it'll be 20, 25. I haven't seen too many big days so far. Like apparently they get some 30, 35s, but I haven't seen those yet this year. But I'm going to come back next November and spend the winter. So I'm sure I'll get some bigger days then. But
where I live on the sunny coast, a 3-meter never comes out. Maybe once or twice a year if you're lucky.
Oh, really? Hence the downwind.
It's not a windy place.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think downwinding, even if you downwind with a wing, the limits of what you can go out in have changed so much in the last 2 years. I used to think it was you needed 20 knots or else you couldn't go out and have a good time. Whereas I can say we regularly go out in 8 knots. And it's just it's a different experience. And there's pretty much always enough energy to go downwind. It's just whether or not it's too onshore. That's usually the issue. But as long as there's wind going one direction, there'll be some sort of energy there. And there'll be some sort of foil that you can ride that will get you down there. But the risk with the wing is that you can't get up if the wind dies. Whereas with the paddle, there's still enough residual wave energy that you can still get up again. So that's the catch, is if you ever want to get into true light wind downwinging, you probably have to learn the sup paddle or get a 4-drive or something like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the limitation.
And you guys have got good ground swell and stuff, like actual swell. Here it's all kind of wind driven for the most part. So if it dies, it kind of flattens out pretty quick. But
yeah, well, some people, so like a buddy of mine, Alex Tibby, he loves it when there's ground swell and I hate it.
Oh, really?
I actually find they're the days that I fall a lot because you've got wind bumps which are all stacked and close together, and then you'll have this huge groundswell come through, and what it does is it eats up the little bumps. It's sort of like they get absorbed as the swell comes through, and you end up with these huge flat spots. And you're always sort of chasing the big swells. But I like the days where there's no swell and it's just wind swell, and it's just fun and surfy and it's predictable. And they're the days I really like. Whereas we did a run the other day, and it was about 30 knots actually, but it was all over the place. It was horrible. It's the worst any of us have ever seen it. And it's like a mountain of a groundswell would come through, and then one would come from a different direction. It was like, it's like you're trying to run across the top of mountains. It's like,
yeah,
people don't really, people that haven't been out like wide on the ocean that much, they don't really understand. It's like 6 to 8 foot tall bumps, and you're like trying to traverse them to make it over and down the backside. It's pretty stressful.
Yeah. But how'd you get into all this?
Oh my God. Pretty much I'm that classic. I've got a long history of extreme sports. So skateboarding, wakeboarding, snowboarding, all of that. There's not a lot of great snow in Australia, but my main one was kiteboarding and wakeboarding growing up. So just obsessed, used to, ride 4 hours every day, which is why my arms don't straighten anymore. See that?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
That's as straight as my elbows go. You got a background in health.
Too much muscle there.
If only. This left arm's wasting away a bit. But anyway, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
And then, it's sort of like I was one of those classic that COVID hit, and foiling just sort of, I saw somebody foiling one day and I was like, I'm going to do that. And I went and bought a setup the next day, much to my wife's dissatisfaction. And I was that classic foil brain for 2 hard years. Like, I'm sort of at the 3.5 year mark now. And I think most people, they do like 2 years. They're just like, that's all I thought about for 2 years was foiling and trying to get better at foiling. And then downwinding. So I started prone and winging at the same time. And sort of like I'm an okay winger by about the 9-month mark. And prone, I always just loved prone. That's my favorite by far. And I got bored of winging because a lot of the time when we get waves and the wind's good, it's like a headwind. Like there's one spot and it's a bay that wraps around. So when you're on the wave coming this way, you're going straight into a 20 knot headwind.
Okay.
It's just not that fun because you got this wing flapping behind you. And then when you try and turn, you're shaving off speed, but so is the wind shaving off speed on you as well. So you just sort of couldn't really do any sort of fun, real turns or anything. And everything felt really slow. And I just sort of lost interest because of that. It just wasn't that. Like we're a decent spot to wing, but I knew freestyle wasn't going to be my thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just, that freestyle, hell no. I'm done with that. I'm too old for that.
Yeah, that shit's intense.
Just like, ankles just get busted up, and I've already got so many old injuries from that. And so wave riding really is what I love. It's the freedom. So I did do some, not much, downwinding with a wing, and I was doing that classic, you get wrapped up in it. It sort of you want to go left and there's a wing that wants to go in behind you. And it just really annoyed me to the point where I knew that it was going to be worth it for me to go after the sup paddle. And then when I had a few runs where I'd, sort of achieved some kilometers, I just went, oh, this is the best. True freedom. There's nothing hanging off you. I really loved it. And it's so difficult. Like one of my most sort of quoted videos is the one where I talked about downwinding and how hard it was and how much I hated it.
It sounds intense.
But it was I was getting payoffs though. So downwinding's like horrible for how it depends on where you do it, but it can be really horrible to learn for a while. And then you get these little payoffs, like you'll get a kilometer on foil. And you're just like, this is the best. And then you'll go backwards usually. It's sort of, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I think it's like 3 steps back, like 2 steps forward. That's what it actually feels like. And I think it was just like you get enough of a little dopamine rush from those little achievements that it keeps you going. But there's a lot of people that they reach the wall and they just go, nah, I'm going to go to hand paddles or I'm going to go back to the wing. And I think they're missing out on the true experience of downwinding, which is to have total freedom with your hands other than holding a paddle, or you can sheath it if you want.
You got harnesses for that?
But or I think Sim Boogie. Do you know Simeon? Have you seen the Hawaiian guy?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, probably heard
Simeon. He's an F1 rider. He always has it on his back. He's got like a little, I think it looks like a rubber tire, and he just straps it on his back. It's so light too. But I've always wondered if people could do that. Yeah, you wouldn't even notice it. People could do it with a wing, like a little clip, and then it would just sit there. That'd be amazing.
Fully inflated, you mean?
If that happened, you can, let's just like have your wing and just let it fly behind you. And if it would actually stay there, if somebody designed a wing, companies listening, because there's tons of companies listening, I bet you.
All of them.
Design a wing that will just sit there and you could just downwind. Yeah. That'd be fun.
Pretty close. The F1 does that. The strikes do that. They just kind of sit there. They don't move. They sit there so well that they're hard to turn. Yeah.
Well, I've never used a F1, unfortunately.
So, I haven't tried it yet, but I can see the freedom when I'm downwinding with my wing, and I'm here because the bumps are maybe, I don't know, waist to shoulder on a decent day that I've had so far. And my old wing doesn't glide that far, but still, it gives me enough of a taste. Now I have my hand wing out of the way, but I'm starting to read what's going on. Because it's okay, so I can catch this bump here. I can connect to this one over on the right, or I can connect to this one over on the left. And they gave a clinic here at Saladita Kite School with Kane DeWild and Gabriella came down. And I saw them one night going down. Yeah, I saw them doing that little run. So how big, for the basics, I don't know anything. So it's let's start maybe from the top of how big of a swell do you need to make it reasonably fun and a bit easier to learn? Or is it just the fact that you're going to get caught in the middle and just have to learn how to pump and paddle and blah, blah?
The easiest conditions to learn is when it's actually not too windy. So 15 knots is perfect. So if you've had 12 to 15 knots running for 2-3 hours, in most places, as long as there's enough water, fetch, they're the best bumps to learn in, and no underlying groundswell. So that's actually the conditions you want. You just want pure wind chop, which I just call wind swell. And that makes it so that you've got really clearly defined peaks and troughs. So when you look to your right and to your left, you'll literally just see there's little scooped out bits and then there's top bits. And if you can learn in those conditions, sounds like you're getting those conditions. You'll jump leaps. Yeah, you'll jump leaps and bounds in a short time frame. But the ocean very rarely cooperates in most people's places. But people on lakes, they'll say, "Oh, I can never downwind," and they're actually the easiest conditions to learn in, as long as there's sufficient wind, because everything's so organized. You don't have all these, you don't have refraction off rocks and everything. You've just got wind bumps. And when you can learn in those conditions, it'll be really easy comparatively.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense with groundswell if it's running. And I see what you're saying. Yeah, because the Great Lakes in the center of US and Canada there, they would be phenomenal for this because they get 6, 8, 10 foot swell. Yeah. And then and every brand now is just coming out with a brand new kind of downwind board. What have you seen over the evolution of it that makes a board or a foil or anything more suitable for beginners to, let's say, get into it?
It's actually been really fun. I've sort of been able to be a part of the sort of the evolution of downwind boards for a little tiny piece. But I think the longer the better. I got pretty strong opinions about this, but that's because I'm heavier. I'm 95 kilos. And I don't know what a 75 kilo rider experience is, but I do know that heavier riders, you always want to size up. So say you're 75 kilos, you might go, oh, a 7/8 board is sufficiently long. And I don't think that's the case when you get heavier. I think you should size up your board quite significantly the heavier you are. It doesn't have to be the volume necessarily. So the trend is towards the 8'6", 8'8" mark. And I think beginners shouldn't be aiming for short, fat boards, like say 7 foot by 22, because they go, oh, that'll be stable. The stability comes from length quite a lot. So my my daily board is an 8'6" bullet. That's 19 wide, and it's really stable. And that's not just me saying that. Like, it's actually genuinely stable, because I had a Sultan that was 7'6", and that was way less stable because it was shorter. So the length of the board really is giving so much stability that beginners should be looking at longer boards, and you're not going to outgrow that board. You're actually going to, you're going to grow into it. Because I think a lot of beginners are like, I'll get a wide board because it'll be stable. The way you actually get stability when you're learning to downwind is by moving forwards. And so if you have a board that naturally actually wants to be moving forward with the bumps, so say you stand up and say you've got a really short, fat board, it won't want to get moving. So it's actually creating instability because it won't move forwards. As soon as that board gets a little bit of forward movement, it'll actually stable up. So the longer your board is, the more naturally, even just standing without even paddling, you'll start to feel yourself moving like a little bit of forward motion, which is going to give you some stability. So I think a lot of beginners are scared of the long boards, and they should be running to them. They should be going, go 8'6", go 9 foot. Don't be scared of that weight, that length. And even if you're on the lakes, don't be scared of it, because this notion that tight packed bumps, you need a short board, it's not the case. It's fun if you can do it. It's really fun. But we've got a spot that's really tight packed bumps. It's like a river that runs out and then wind goes up. And I've been riding my 8'6" board and trying to, I can surf it. So, and foil wise, bigger is better when you're learning, but to a point, because then there's a point where, so just getting a paddle up is like the hardest thing in the beginning. Just getting on foil, you're just like, oh my gosh, I got on foil. And then very quickly it becomes, okay, how do I stay on foil?
That was my next question, eh?
Exactly. And that's the hardest thing. And then what happens is those foils that are big and lifty and chunky, they start to then work against you really quickly, because let's say the bumps are moving at 22 kilometers an hour. I can use kilometers because you're Canadian.
Even though we have listeners from everywhere, it's all right.
Not miles. 15 miles.
You got to be good to our Americans too, eh?
Say, nah, stuff it. No. They're not part of the Commonwealth. We don't care about them. So the bumps are, say, moving at, I don't know, 22 kilometers an hour, but your foil can only do 15 kilometers an hour.
Oh, yeah, okay. And
what ends up happening is everything just moves underneath you. So you're cruising along and the bumps just go underneath you, and then you're like, I'm on an uphill. And that's what happens when you're a beginner. Yeah, you're just like, you'll hear people say, I feel like I'm always pumping uphill. And that's because they're either not cutting across or they're trying to go straight and their foil's not fast enough. And then they're always chasing the back of bumps. So that's why the beginner stages are so difficult, because you don't know what you don't know. And people can tell you in theory, but until you experience it out in the bumps, it just does. It's like another language. Reading the ocean is like literally learning a language. It's taken me 2 years, and still it presents me with sentences that I don't understand. So
that's normal, I guess. So at the start, so what you're saying is you're finding that the foils are too slow. People are trying to go straight down rather than use the energy by going left or right and trying to pick up a bit more speed by harnessing that power by moving left kind of thing. Yeah. Okay.
So pretty much like there's always energy somewhere, but there's energy that'll project you forwards and there's energy that'll stall you out. That's sort of the two that exist in very simplistic terms. And so you're always, what people do in the beginning, and people do this with the wing a lot because they can have it above their head. is they start to like go over stuff that if you didn't have the power of the wing, you wouldn't be able to. So when you're cutting across, it's because if you didn't cut like left or right, you'd be going into an uphill, because every bump you can be on the back end of it, and obviously you're not going to be getting lift, or you can be on the front and you're going to be getting lift. That's good. So we want to be here. But it's very easy to go down a bump and go straight into the back of the one in front of you. Oh, and that's what most people do. And they'll say they're pumping uphill, and they literally are. So they've gone down a bump, and rather than traverse across and, use that and go across it, they go straight down it. And I'm sorry for the podcast listeners, I've got my hands in the air. Like I just don't care.
We're running into bumps.
I'm making bump shapes. So this will make no sense.
Very descriptive. Yeah.
There's ways to stay with a bump, which is, as you say, to like draw S's on the bump. And you're just like the same way you are on a wave. You're staying in the power zone. So you go left and right and you stay on the same bump. You can just surf that bump. The other way is obviously you just traverse that bump. So you just go straight across it. And so on big bumps, that's what you tend to do. The only way you can really go straight is if you're matching the speed of the bump. That's probably the main thing. So your foil, even though it's a big, thick foil, it'll still outrun some bumps, especially in the bay like type setting that you're in. And that's why you have to surf. Because if you surf, you'll stay with that energy. Whereas if you go straight, you just run in the back of the one in front. So I'm not saying that foil, those foils are very surfy, and it'll do exactly what you find. But as soon as you get out into ocean energy, like proper ocean energy, it'll work against you so much. And you'll be like, holy moly, my legs are so tired. Because then it's just, it's trying to match your foil as best you can with the dominant energy that's in the ocean.
That's a good point to note. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's always like multiple sources. There's the groundswell, and sometimes it's all moving at a similar speed. And that's awesome. That's when you go super fast. And that's when you crash. It really hurts. And then some days, it's just slow, and you just need a slow foil, because when you can still use a smaller foil, but you end up just up and overing. So you're just trying to pump over the top of everything, or you're trying to surf really hard. So it's just matching. That's the goal. And that takes ages to figure out. Like it takes years, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
yeah. So but even then, learning what bump and how high to sit on your foil, like where to put your foil in the end, or what are tricks and stuff and tips and tricks for that? Because if you're on a longer mast, does it matter if your mast is like if your board's super close to the water, or is it better if you're a little bit higher up? Or
it depends. So
size sort of in the bay.
Yeah, because sometimes you are trying to slow yourself down. Like when I'm on the 1051 Art Pro, which is a very fast foil for its size, I have to dip down lower to slow down, or else I just shoot down bumps so fast that I can't really control that speed. And so I'll even drag my paddle sometimes. Like I have to slow myself down, because sometimes you just get so much inertia when this is the advantage of being heavy when it's big. It's
like when you're getting pitted, bro. That's what they say, Arts, eh? Did you hear that surfer thing, bro? God,
Quippa, have you seen that guy?
Yeah, that guy.
I was like, well, Quippa. That's what it feels like when you crash down winning. People don't understand, like you're going 40 k's an hour. So these are towing speeds. Like these are the speeds you tow at, and then you're crashing on an 8'6" board. And with a paddle in your hand, it freaking hurts. Like, boom. Anyway.
Yeah. So you're obviously doing the X kind of formation, protecting your face and all that jazz.
This is a hot tip I told a friend the other day, and he never heard it. I said, what I do is when I crash, if my board goes down in front of me because of the leash, I pull the paddle up across me. And what it does is the paddle actually acts like a little bit of a shield if it shoots back at you. Because, if your leggy coils up and comes back at you, and it actually happened the other day that the foil shot back at me and I had the paddle up in front of me, and it caught the paddle. So dented
Just
my $4,000 ultra carbon mask though. So I wasn't happy about. But I probably was going to cop that to the face. So yes.
Anyway. All right, that's good. The one time, like I do that all the time. So as soon as I fall, I'll cross my arms or whatever. The one time I don't do that, like 2 weeks ago, I took the foil right to the lip. It's like, come on. The only time I don't do it. So yeah, everybody cross your arms, definitely. Okay, so
I'll tell you this one. A friend of mine, he rides for PPC, Trent. He actually copped the rear wing up under his arm last week.
Oh,
and like they couldn't find the bottom of it, so he had to get internal stitches. And we were saying to him, "You're really lucky because obviously, you've got the brachial artery in there." He, and that was a downwind run, 2 kilometers out to sea. If he'd popped that, it was game over. Because you can't tourniquet, a shoulder. So be warned.
Oh, shit, all right.
It was Armstrong.
All right, so
bloody Armstrong, too sharp.
Yeah, they're too fast and too performance. Yeah.
Sponsorships available for Wing Life Podcast.
Calling that my first time riding Axis, and I loved them. Like I rode a 3 or 4 or 5 different. So there's Brittany here who is like an Axis rep kind of thing, and she does a lot of demos here and I think in the Gorge with her partner. And so I tried that one, and I was on a 58-liter Seek from North, and because that's what the Saladita Kite School had when I came down here just to check it out. But I tried their HAs, fairly bigger ones, like 12 or 13s, and then down to the 1051 I've tried, and then I think some of the smaller Art Pros as well. And overall, super fast. Obviously, I could tip out easily. If I overfoiled, they would go back in the water. Shit that my stuff doesn't do just because it's an older den, but it does its trick. Yeah. But I was pretty impressed with them, actually. Adrian's an awesome guy, and they're putting out good product. So, yeah. Oh,
for sure. I think Axis sometimes doesn't get credit it deserves for the performance end of things. Like the Art Pros probably didn't get the we'll call it the market time that they deserved. Because I remember I had a friend ask me, he's like, "Oh, so when's Axis coming out with downwind wings?" It's like, they already have. The Art Pros are really the excellent downwind wings. They're very fast. They're very good at up and overing. And they're a little bit harder to paddle up than some other foils. But with that, you get this what feels like an endless top end. Obviously, that's not true. I'm just, that's hyperbole. But it does. They tend not to have the pitching moment that other foils can have that have a lot of low end. They're just great downwind foils. But obviously, when you're on a 2-year-old foil, anything that you're on these days that's from any brand is probably going to be excellent. Wow. Exactly. Aspect ratio sort of 11, 12, 13 is so good for downwinding, and it really changes downwinding to a different type of sport. It's, it's actually just a different sport now. And I always wonder if, because how everything goes in swings and roundabouts like surfing did. We went fish boards, and then we went all the way through to banana surfboards that were 16 wide, and then it went back to fish boards. I reckon one day people are going to come back to the foil you're on, and that's going to be the thing. I'm on this super cruiser slow thing. I just want to cruise, bro. So hold on to it. Give it 2 years. You never know.
No getting pitted for Canadians, all right?
That's right. You have pretty big waves, don't you, on the West Coast? Wouldn't it? West Coast?
Yeah, they get some decent
pretty
stuff.
Psycho.
It's up in like Vancouver Island, Tofino, Long Beach area. They get some decent sized. Now it's like, I don't know, 4 degrees, 5, 6, 7 degrees. The water's super cold. But you get some good stuff there, definitely. Even at like Lake Ontario, where we go, I've
just Googling
seen
Ontario.
The biggest. yeah, for sure. Yeah, look up Lake Ontario. Yeah. And so what is it can have up to 20, 25 foot swell there. I've had some insane days. The place we go to is Sandbanks. It's a point break. So the swell's coming in, it wraps around, and then we have all these like lowers, uppers, and middles and stuff, wave breaks. Then they break on these limestone shells. And honestly, it's a really, really good spot. Like wind is side short, a slight side off, and we started winging there. And that's when I realized that I wasn't that good, because like my girlfriend at the time was filming on the shore, and I was going down in this head high thing, and I said, "Hey, I turned, I turned like fucking straight down the thing." Because I didn't like, it's insanely quick. But I'm going to try downwinding next year. I should pick up a board. And do you find that the weight of the board and the length actually helps with glide as well, comparative to, because I was on some of those Axis foils, but I had a short little wingboard, and I didn't find the glide sensational. But I'm pretty sure that if you're on this bigger kind of canoe type board, does that help, or is it the micro movements that you're doing, you feel them more, or it generates more power? Or?
I think it's deceiving. I think on a big board, it dampens out any twitchiness, which I think like glide, I suspect that a foil is going to glide about the same, as long as it's balanced and your feet are in the right position, about the same, even if there's a 1 or 2 kilo difference in the board. I do think that the thickness and the weight of the board acts as like a lever arm that dampens out what you feel, and it would feel more glidey. So I have, when I've done prone downwinders on like the 1121 Art Pro, it feels twitchy as. I'm like, oh, this thing's twitchy and it feels wobbly. But then I put on my downwind board, I'm like, smooth as butter. And I just think it's the board. Yeah. But you think about it, you've got this little counter lever that can absorb it versus, a little top. It's going to feel everything. That's my scientific explanation. I love coming up with made-up scientific explanations.
You're the guy to talk to about this, so I guess we're going to have to roll with it. But what kind of fuse
scraping the bottom of the barrel
and tail? Well, that's the thing, right? What are we going to do?
I actually really enjoy this. I'm the only person in Axis that is pushing for longer fuses, and I'm very adamant about this. So I hate short fuses. So I was even talking to, so for both prone and downwinding, I use so it's a long fuse, which is actually a short fuse. So the naming conventions get confusing, especially when you talk about them about people that don't understand Axis. So I use a 70 mil fuse, which is the short fuse, which is one of their longer fuses. So we'll keep
it's not their silly short, which is silly shorts are 60, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And there's a super silly short.
Yeah, and then 640 and then a 670, I think, which is the ultra short, which most people are on the ultra short, and then the short. So, so I'm on the short advance plus, which it's just, short advance. And then I use 365 by 45 skinny rear. And I use that for pretty much everything. So I prone that and I downwind that. And I'm of the opinion that twitchiness, because obviously the longer you fuse, the more pitch instability you create. I think if you're trying to create instability with your foil, maybe your front foil is too big. So I prone a 780 Spitfire and I'm 95 kilos. So not everybody's going to be able to ride that setup. But I actually want stability because the 780 is so rolly. It's a great foil for surfing and turning. And I want something that's actually, when I go into a carve, is not going to go like twitch through the carve. I want my carves to be smooth and long and powerful. And I think if you're trying to, it's my style of prone surfing is I don't want to do the little check turn things. And the shorter your fuse is, the easier it is to do those little check turn. And you can draw a tighter arc, but in that arc, you can't push as hard. And I really love that feeling of just being on rail, pushing super hard through your back foot. And the long fuse allows me to do that. And I stole this from watching people like Zane Westwood, Mr. Bennett's, and Oscar, and they all use long fuses. And I looked at my riding and I went, there's something missing. I've not got something that they have. And I think it's that drive through the back foot, and a longer fuse, I think, gives you that drive through the back foot, because if you've got a really short fuse, you can't really, the place where you push, there isn't something, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
I've lost.
All right.
Anyway, that's my explanation.
I think it's all for your Instagram videos and stuff anyway. So yeah, you have to make that stuff look like an art. Yeah.
It's all
wax up the wetsuit and make sure.
Do you know why I opened up with asking if you have a jingle? Did you hear what Generic Foiling Podcast did to me?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't want to promote Generic Foiling Podcast, obviously, on your podcast. Actually, because I've got a platform to defend myself. So they have that Room 101 thing where you put something that you don't want to exist anymore.
Yeah,
and
we have the room.
Yes. So on an Instagram comment, I wrote, I'd put your jingle in the Room 101. And obviously I meant it as a joke. And I didn't know that the jingle was written by a 9-year-old boy.
Oh no.
And, yeah, exactly. Oh no. I didn't know that. And so they replied and said, this is written by a child. And then what they did is at the beginning, you should go and listen to it at the beginning of their intro. They went and talked to Charlie, the kid that wrote it, and were like, there's somebody out there that doesn't like your jingle. And what do you think of him? And he's like, he's an asshole. So they
damn it, I should have used it.
I didn't know, and I'm sorry, and it's a wonderful piece of music, Charlie.
Yes.
So anyway,
okay.
That's why I asked if you had a jingle, because I was going to say how great it was.
I was like, wait a second. Why is he being so friendly? I listened to that episode and he's an asshole.
That's right. I always wonder, because Canadians, we have a similar sense of humor, and so do the UK, whereas in general, the US take themselves a little bit more seriously, less teasing of yourself. I reckon it's going to go over the top of the head of a few of the US. They're going to be like, oh, Dave's an asshole.
We're very self-deprecating. I think that's the right word. And we're always sorry about everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I fell off the board. Sorry, I didn't buy the right gear. But all right. So you're riding a 70 and you find it makes a difference. And that you found helped you quite a bit. I'm on a 60. So I got that. Next year when Britt's back with Axis and she has like everything under the sun that I can try. So I'm definitely going to do that. And then what did you find helped you? Because phase number 1 is you're literally just on a sup and you're trying to get this thing out of the water. Like, are you doing some flat water pumping stuff that we've seen Gwen and some of the other guys work on and practice on that?
I got obsessed with flat water paddle ups, and it was a big mistake. It was a massive time waste. So I was in that James Casey coaching group, and he used to tell me, like, don't stress about paddle ups so much. And I just didn't listen to him, which was dumb. And really, you should spend your time in the ocean, like, or the lake or whatever you are. And I did. All you really need to do is learn to paddle straight and sort of engage the foil. Don't worry about paddle ups. But I spent ages trying to get paddle ups on like a 6'6" board, which is so difficult. And then I ended up getting them, and then I was still struggling in the bumps. So I got really good at flat water paddle ups, and I thought that would translate to me being great at paddling up in the bumps, and it's just not the case.
Oh, for the gram.
It doesn't. It's a great party trick, and I'm glad I can do it.
Yeah.
And it was probably the fittest I've been in downwinding, because I was just like muscling up. But downwinding paddle ups, like in the ocean, are much more about your timing and your speed rather than grunt. So that was a big time waster. Like, I just wasted so much time.
So almost building speed before the bump shows up, and then turning left or right to catch it a bit more. Like,
not. Have you surfed before? Do you have a history of surfing?
Yeah, we really have. We have frozen lakes in Canada, so I've skated, but I haven't really surfed much.
It's just it's actually a different world. When we see snow, like I haven't seen snow in like 4 years. And when we see snow, we are like giddy. Oh my gosh, look at the snow. And it'll be on the side of the road. It's just a clump. And there's snow. We'll get the kids out the car. Look at the snow. Anyway.
Come below the driveway, up in the tractor and minus 20, and like 20 knots of wind. You got to fucking mask up just to make sure you don't freeze your face off. But it's fun, though.
Like, what is it? It's April and I had the aircon on a second ago because it's still too hot. It's still like 32 degrees every day here. So in regards to the timing of the paddle up is more like when you go to catch a wave, there's this little technique you can do, like where you bob the tail in and then you sort of use that energy to pop back out. It's a surfing thing that people do. It's got a name, but it's actually more like that. Like you get a very short window to start accelerating, but if you actually accelerate too early, you end up sort of in the wrong spot. So there's this magic spot that's very hard to explain via podcast, but it's more of a feeling thing and timing. And I'm actually trying to work towards making like the best teaching video I can for paddle ups, because the guys that have done them, like Matt Lasser from Lift did a really good one, but he's in the gorge where the bumps are perfect. Yes. And then it's almost too simple because it's much more complicated than that. So I'm trying to work on something, but it's really hard. But yeah, and this is the most difficult forum to explain it. But it is a timing thing. It's actually about finesse and balance.
Okay. Well, we can intro, like, how long you been doing YouTube? What kind of got you to start doing that?
So it's kind of embarrassing. I've actually had about 6 YouTube channels in the past. So as a kid, I think YouTube was out when I was about, I don't know, 9 or something. I don't actually know. But I used to make like stupid videos on my GoPro 1 and like vlogs. I've always been obsessed with YouTube. I actually love YouTube as a platform. And so this is the first YouTube channel that's actually ever gotten any traction. So when people are like, oh, you're really good at YouTube, I was like, I better be. I've done it for about 20 years. So
the veteran, man.
This YouTube channel, I think we're at 3 years. And that was literally because, so I worked as a device rep in the hospitals. And during COVID, they locked us out of the hospitals. So I was at home getting paid, and I didn't do anything for 2 years. I was bored out of my brains, and I started foiling. And I was like, oh, I'll just make a YouTube channel about this and sort of share. And a lot of it was actually started in winging. I was making winging videos, which have the highest views of it. Most of my videos is anything that's winging related because it's the biggest viewership. And yeah, it just like got its own traction. I was like, what? People are watching this and getting something from it. And I think I'm 34, and at this age, I've realized making content, as long as you don't make it about yourself. Also,
yeah. Ditch the all we're gonna hear is click, click, click.
That's a good point. At some point, I realized like
clicking's done now.
Sorry, the clicking's done. It was just my knuckles. No, this is like, because when I run my podcast, I have my own vocals running back through as well, so I can make sure I'm not breathing into the mic or anything. Like, this is why, because I can't hear what I'm saying.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, I realized I was making stuff that I wanted to help people, and as long as I made videos, so I have a rule with all my videos: as long as it serves the audience, I'll make it. If it's about trying to make me look cool, I don't make it. Whereas I used to make videos that were like, look at this thing I'm doing, a backflip off a tree. And I think that was the secret sort of source that I'd stumbled upon, is if I do it to serve the community, then it will do well. And if you can marry that up with something you enjoy, then you don't get burnt out and you enjoy it, and it makes the hours and hours of work worth it. Because it is like, it's very time. I've got RSI at the moment because I've been editing for the last few days.
I hear you.
It's very time consuming.
Definitely.
As you'd understand.
Yes.
And so, it's been this weird, I don't know. I'm like, I always wanted to be, I'll admit, I always wanted to be a sponsored like kiteboarder and wakeboarder. And I sort of like, I got like ambassador deals, you know, there's $200 off, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like, as soon as I let that dream go, it's happened. It's very weird. Like I've got 3 kids and like, I thought my days were done. And now, you know, I'm sponsored in multiple gear categories by multiple brands. It's very strange. I don't know how to deal with it. So and I'm just sort of I'm just waiting for it to end. I'm just going to keep doing this and enjoying it, and one day it's going to be all over.
Getting started.
As my hair's just like slowly popping out the top here. That's good look.
It's like Tintin. Have you heard Tintin? That show?
Oh yeah, Tintin.
French show. Yeah. There you go. You kind of look like him a bit.
Tintin.
That's often.
My brother used to get called Tintin because his name was Tim.
Oh,
and he loved Tim.
Fine.
Tintin.
Tim.
And Asterix.
Tim, yeah.
Asterix? Was it Asterix?
Anyway. Asterix.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
Why did you?
Like
why did you start the podcast? Tell me.
Why did I start this thing? Because I think I came to a realization that I was not going to become a profession, and I was teaching winging, and I had too much energy and passion for the sport, and I didn't know where to put it. So I had a bunch of 10 buddies back scattered all over Canada. And our first 3 episodes were Zoom based, and they were like, my brother was laughing his ass off because he was like, it's like AA wing, because he's like, hey, I'm Rob, I wing foil, and hi, I'm Tim, I wing foil. And it started like that. And then it was like, all right, well, who else wants to talk to us? And then we realized that our listens were going up, and we were getting, so that's kind of why we started it. And now we have a team of 4 of us now, or 3 guys plus myself, and super passionate people. Like we just got sponsored by North this year, which is exciting. Nice. So a little shout out to those guys.
Oh, legends. Good on you, North. And, good job.
Yeah, they picked us up, which is amazing. We still have other categories available. But so for that, it was great. And I never thought I would.
Let's shout out the categories.
I never thought. Well, you got 3 levels, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And then, so they're available for those of you out there.
Come on, companies. Foil Drive will throw money at you.
Come on. I met those guys at AWSI last September. And guys, awesome. I'm going to see everybody. I'm going to be back in AWSI this September coming up.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see everybody again. But that's why we started it. And then we realized it was a great medium to help companies put out some products to the community, because there's some for some things video is king, and for something audio is king. And like if you have your own, so what we're doing now is product release videos where you come on and we talk about exactly why and how and where it was developed and testing and all that nature of things, which you can on a walk. Here I am pitching my own show, but like for that kind of stuff is cool. But there's other things where I'd much rather watch a video. So learning how to downwind, like I'd much rather turn on your videos, because that's more specific to what it is that we're doing. So anyways, that's why I never thought we'd be pro podcasters either. I thought it was a complete joke, but here we go.
The to me, the podcast medium's like the most, it's one of the, I think to me, it's the second best way to develop like a really special relationship with people, because you're with them on their morning commute every day. And there's like a degree of regularity, whereas YouTube, obviously, I still like, and as you say, YouTube's probably the best way to convey like teaching people things in general. But it's a more flippant, people with busy lives in their 50s aren't going to regularly be jumping on YouTube, but they are regularly in their car looking for something to consume. And if they're foil brained, like so many people are, they are like always after podcast episodes about foiling. And there's only there's like 4 of them, and they become friends with you. They don't realize it, but they're friends with you because they're just like, oh, I was chatting to Luke today, in the car, and that's like,
it's true though.
It's pretty special. And foilers are just desperate for more content. And it's sort of hard to keep up. She's just like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And, you've got your time that you're using now, whatever it will be, an hour and a half. And then there's the prep time, then there's the editing. So good on you. I always try and like create. We need creators because it's so good for the community. Everybody loves it. So. And
it's true. No, I appreciate it. Same with like, because I know how long it takes to shoot and film a good video. Like it's not easy, and thinking through how to convey a message. Because I was watching a few of yours there before, like it looks like you're just in the center of the ocean, and like just to walk through what it is that you're doing, it's difficult. Definitely. So, So what is your YouTube channel called for those that are just driving to work right now?
That's a great question. It's Dave West Foils. So luckily Google's figured out who I am. And if you just put in Dave West, it's going to be a basketball player or me, which is pretty cool. It's just Dave West Foils. And like a lot of the more recent stuff is Axis demos, foil drive stuff, and downwinding and prone. There's not a lot of new winging stuff. There's some older stuff. So if this is mainly a winging audience, unless you're looking to dabble across, there's not a lot of stuff in there. But I think
they probably stopped listening 20 minutes ago, so it doesn't matter.
I can't blame them. But the thing is though, and I'm going to sell the value, is the best wing foilers actually just know how to use their foil. And prone, downwinding, or whichever discipline, any of those disciplines, it's all about how to use your foil, how to have your foil, how to have your feet right, how to have your balance right. And all that stuff applies across every single genre of the sport. So, the best wing foilers are usually great prone foilers. Look at Cash Bazzola. What a freak. He's so good at winging, but he rips, and that's because it's the chicken and the egg type scenario. So if you learn to surf a wave on a wing, you'll probably be able to surf on a prone. So when it's not windy, jump across. It's different experience. So
all right, So we're teaching
fun.
people to like try different sports now. Before, the kiters weren't allowed to talk to the windsurfers, and the French weren't allowed to talk to the English. But we're getting better. We're getting better.
It's a big foil orgy. That's what we want. You can use that as a promo clip.
Australians. All right, Frank is going to cut this and he's going to put this. Yeah. Okay.
So you don't have to edit it.
Well, you know what? My friend, so I have a buddy. No. I was editing all of them. And then a buddy who is from Ottawa, and now he moved to, he's traveling currently right in an Indonesia area. So he's over there and he's starting to take care of all the editing. He's put out 2 feature films, kind of documentary style feature films. One was about homelessness in Ottawa in the bitter cold. So I helped him film that way back in the day. And then he did another video right now about the community where he was staying, on the island that he was staying. And beautiful, beautiful work. So he was looking to work on passion projects. So he was like, can I edit? And we kind of worked it out. And so he's bringing up our quality a little bit and figuring out what he likes to see and what he's learning. And so it's been a fun little journey.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll tell him to
you
make
do all
jingle.
Your own stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, make one for this episode.
Yeah, that's right. Just for this episode. Just take the generic falling podcast one and use it for this, which is pretty much dang, 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 dang. No, it's a great jingle. They have an excellent jingle. I forgot what the question was. Oh yeah, I do everything, which is so dumb. Like I wish I had like a partner in crime. I 100% wish I did, but I don't. So I've even considered like, could I just send it to Fiverr? So like, I have a podcast episode with Paul Martin from Fall Drive. It's like a 2-hour episode, and I haven't edited it. And it was like 3 months ago because I'm just I just edited it out.
It's painful. Yeah,
and I don't have any. I have gear sponsors, but I don't have any monetary sponsors. And so sometimes I'm just like, you've got to pick your battles. Like I've got the YouTube channel, and I had the podcast, and people really, I've had a lot of positive feedback from the podcast and people wanted me to do more. But I'm also like, at the end of the day, I do all of this for free, and I have another life that I sort of have to maintain as well. And, a wife and 3 kids, and I've got to work.
How old are your little ones?
6, 4, and 2.
Oh, awesome.
So, if I go and do a podcast over dinner, that's, my wife cops that, because now she's got to put the kids to bed on her own. So it's not just, it's like when you add everything up, the podcast has actually been the most difficult one, because it's like evenings and it's time away from my family.
And they're long too, right? Like it's not a 20-minute or a 10-minute video. It's like an hour and a half long conversation. Then you got to edit that stuff out. And I can put you in contact with Stefan. Like we can do that afterwards there when we get off the air. And if there's anything that you need from him, just talk and see if it's worthwhile and that kind of thing. But it's definitely, and I think this is one thing as well that a lot of community people don't necessarily understand, that a lot of this we're doing a lot of the time, it is for free. And that industry is very, very, very tight on funding, and it all much depends on a lot of factors. Now, the guys at North, to be honest, were phenomenal because they loved what we were doing. They also were big supporters of community. So I have to give a shout out. They're one of the first companies that looked at more than just numbers, but which is phenomenal. But it does take some time, and it does take a lot of things. Like I think it's a great space, but I think we're putting in, I don't know, like maybe 10 hours, and this is on top of work. Like if you're putting in an episode a week, it's at least 10 some hours.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Well, and people don't quite, there's a bit of stupidity on my end. So when I get some extra money, I don't have to buy foils now, but what I end up doing is buying gear that like contributes to the channel. So I buy like a new camera, and that's the thing. Like I sold some gear. I'll flash it because it's entertaining, but I'm buying a drone with this to film foiling with, to make tutorials. It's so dumb. I'm like, I finally made, like I sold, a couple of things and made some money. I'm like, I'm reinvesting anything I get, which I don't like. I've made $0. Like genuinely, I have made $0 in 3 years from foiling. So, but I've had epic experiences. I've met so many great people. It's actually been the best chapter of my life, like bar none. And I've actually made a conscious decision to not involve money in foiling so that it remains sort of, it doesn't get convoluted, because like my main job is I'm a professional musician. So I've already taken a hobby before and made it a job, and you do lose a bit of the passion. Like you definitely do. Yeah. And I think while there's no money involved, I can always say no. So if somebody gives me a product and, there's less pressure, and you can be more honest, because as soon as, and I'm not saying this about you guys, obviously it's the way you're sponsored is totally different than the way I would be sponsored.
Yes.
But
we tried to clean that up in that sense, like a product release video or a product. So it's
clear cut.
It's clear cut. Like I'm not reviewing, I'm not testing. They're presenting something, and I'm asking questions as to why would I want this. So that's a bit easier. And then that sponsorship is based on that. It's not another form, which is more so that I'm being paid either to do reviews or paid to do a positive quality test or paid to do those kind of things. Yeah.
Because, like there was a version where I could have gone down the track with the YouTube channel where products, different companies gave me products and I would review the product. But I always thought that how could I actually be honest? Because, there's that positive reinforcement. They've given you something. They have an expectation. It's a small industry. It's not like tech where if you review an iPhone and shit on it, well, Samsung's right there and then there's Nokia or whatever. It's like, you upset one company, that's it. You're probably done with that company for a while. And so I went down, I just went, well, I'm writing Axis, and the opportunity came up to be on Team Writer. And I just went, okay, I just want good, reliable gear. And I was on Amos boards. I hit up Amos. I said, hey, you keen to make me an ambassador? He's like, yep. And then eventually became a team rider with them. And the 4Drive popped up, and I just went, well, what I can do is I can focus on tutorials and less of the gear review, because I don't really like doing gear reviews. I much prefer to do tutorials. Sorry, other way around. I like doing gear reviews, but I know, like, I don't – hold on, I'm getting confused. I don't prefer to do tutorials, but I know that's what the community needs.
Yes.
Like, the community actually wants tutorials more than they want gear reviews. And the problem with gear reviews is they're niche. So, you know, if it's an Axis wing, well, only Axis riders really care. So it's a bit of a challenge because, you know, I'd rather do things that serve the entire foiling community. But at the same time, I also, if I get given gear, there's an unspoken expectation that you present something at least about it. And so you're always trying to manage that, but still be really honest, because I'm always honest. That's the thing. Like, if I don't like a foil, I don't talk about it. It's because I can go and whinge to Adrian directly if I don't like a foil. I actually don't need to whinge to the community. So if you don't hear me talking about something, that's usually a sign that I don't particularly like it. But if you do hear me talking about something, it's because I like it.
I think that's the unspoken rule. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Like, and it's all because there's a lot of companies. It just depends on what kind of a rider you are and the relationship you have with that company. And then that stuff is the best for you. Yeah. Because everything now has to almost fairly even keel, I could say. And to some people, they can't feel the difference. So it just depends on if you met one guy and you liked him, or if you happen to have 6 buddies, like what we talked about in another episode with Gwen and Damien, because we got a new show coming out with them soon, as we talked about. Cool. Yeah, so we're going to do as an educational based series where we build off of their YouTube channel and go through FAQs, and we'll have some live coaching as well. So if you submit your videos, you will be able to have live coaching with us, like you can come on as a guest kind of thing. But what we found there is it's very niched. Yeah, no, thanks. It's niche. So like if in our area, if everybody's riding Armstrong or Axis or whatever it is, it's better for you to stay within that niche because you'll be able to buy and sell easier, learn easier, like all these different things, right? Like if you're the only one riding a foil and nobody else does, like it's going to be a little bit harder to sell it within your little tiny community. For sure. But we're pretty much pro everybody. I think everybody has the same goal of bringing in more joy and happiness. And so
I think, and when you're a team rider, like, as you say, there is the differences between foil brands now are not huge. Like everybody's got great foils. Everybody's now coming out with great downwind foils because that's sort of my main concern. And it starts to be about what's the culture, what's the team rider culture. Because like Amos Shapes, we just did a team trip. It was so fun. That was to release Josh's cruiser model. And that was just like the best time. And so they're the sort of things you start to think about. You're like, okay, if the foils are great, sweet. If the company's great, sweet. If the team trips are great, even better. You know, it's like that this sort of the evaluation starts to change as you navigate this sort of area. And so you can, if you just wanted to be on the best foils, but it was a bad company to work for, then you might not do it. So your team riders are, they're always an interesting representation because there's other things that are going on in the background that don't get talked about and that, you know, sort of stay in the shadows. And
well, there's some shit that went down at AWSI last year with some companies.
Jimmy
and
Jam?
I'm not going to mention any names, but it was.
I didn't say that.
Like I went to bed early or whatever, but I heard there was a couple things that went down, and you know what? Like it was too much for me, but it kind of fit the image and of what I saw during the day, and that turned me off. And I was just like, that's one more nail on the coffin for this particular company. And I said, I'm not really into that stuff. Like, this is not why I came here.
Yeah.
So, and there's other companies who go out of their way to be friendly and they help you with everything. And Like one of the reasons I do like KT and Armstrong and them, because just how they are and how friendly they are when they meet you and stuff.
Yeah,
and that's one thing. And there's so many other ones like in small, but so culture is a huge part of it. And obviously everybody is seeing and everybody's riding everything. Like let's take that out of the bag. If you have a company, most likely they're buying different foils. They're buying the whole lineup from everybody. They're testing and they're all growing together. Yeah. It's like one big pot of helping each other. But no, that's it's interesting.
And that's like if Foil Drive made a shit product, which they didn't, they made a great product. But if they had made a shit product, I'd probably still be stoked on it because I love Paul and Ben. They're my friends. True, and it's like, like you'll notice I never really, if anybody watches my reviews, I never really talk about my bias. It's because everybody, I have a medical background like you, and everybody has so much bias, we just don't realize it. So like, if you say I'm going to try and give an unbiased review, you're biased by trying to be unbiased. Like
placebo, bro.
Exactly. It's like, of course I'm biased. Like I'm friends with Amos. I'm friends with Adrian. I'm friends with Paul and Ben. It's like, I don't want to upset those guys. Of course. Like every person you get a review from, even if they paid for it, they have a bias because they might be annoyed that they had to pay for it. And they might be making a review to try and get sponsored. You don't know. So I always just go like, everyone's full of shit. Just have a good time.
and that's it. Have a good time. Whatever it is you're riding is fine. Like, and obviously biases make sense because if a company guy pisses you off, you don't want to ride his stuff. Like it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
I think 100%. It's just human nature. It's human nature. Yeah. So that being said, what kind of a paddle do you ride and why do you like it?
I've recently changed paddle. You love paddles. I've heard you love paddles.
Yeah. Canadians love
what
paddles.
What am I on? Yeah. You've all got a maple. Maple. What's it called? I've got some Axis ones which haven't come out yet, which look like they look a little bit like, we call it the potato blade. Sorry, Adrian, if you watch this, because it's sort of that Q blade stingray shape. It's a slightly altered version. But the one I have been on regularly is the Fanatic. It's just a standard paddle. So like one of the things that happened in downwinding is they started using really fat paddles like Ono Avas. So they're about almost, an extra third bigger than a normal paddle, like a stand-up paddle. And then like Kane DeWild, he's been using like this huge shovel looking thing. And I've gone back to just a normal paddle, like a 85 square inch, very standard SUP paddle, because I realized like, why would foilers think we're reinventing the wheel? Paddling, like SUP paddles have been around for 20, 30 years. There's no new technology that we're going to discover with our little baby sport of downwinding.
Probably not.
So I've gone back to the traditional paddle, and it's because of the cadence. The most important thing is to get lots of quick strokes in and be able to get the paddle out quickly if you're unbalanced, to get another stroke, maybe slide to the right or to the left or whatever. Whereas with those big paddles, I've done a full 360 on this too, I have to admit. I used to be like, yeah, big paddles. But as I've gotten better, I realized, no, you need to be nimble.
Your next video that you're going to put out is going to be all of them.
Yeah, pretty much.
With a jingle. All right. Okay.
I need a jingle. I was going to put on the title, I was wrong, because then I'll like lure people in. Clickbaity. Yeah. I was wrong.
With your
like, what are you wrong about?
Yeah.
But I think a smaller paddle is like an 85, 82 square inch paddle is actually so much better and to learn on. Because I remember when James Casey, because I pushed big paddles because I was like, yeah, this is the way. And James Casey, he's very mature. He was just quiet about it. He didn't say anything. And I realized he was just being nice to me because he knew better. He was like, no, because Code brought out their paddle and it was like a classic paddle. And I was like, that was the right move because, yeah, the big paddles. I went back to the big paddle 3 weeks ago and I had the worst 4 downwind runs I've had in 2 years. So, and it was like the paddle ups. It took me 15 minutes to paddle up because you'd put the paddle in and you'd only be able to get one stroke in the case that you'd normally get 3. And then you'd fall off balance and you wouldn't be able to get the paddle out quick enough to catch yourself. So it was a big deal for me. So I'm pretty passionate about the small paddle.
All right, that's fine, man.
Who'd have thought?
It's fine. Small is better. It's all right. So we covered most of everything: board, foil, paddle. Now, like, you bring in a watch. What kind of safety equipment? We might as well go on full on freaking. Yeah. So what kind of watch are you riding? Yeah.
This is the Garmin Fenix 6. It doesn't have cellular. It would be nice if it did. So I use this just to track my times, and then always take a phone. Absolutely always take a phone for so many reasons. Like, I had a run last week where my mast bolt fell out. I forgot to tighten my bolts up.
Oh shit.
And I went to pump, and it was just went, because it was the back of the tail was bouncing out of the fuse. It was like gunk, gunk, and it sounded so loud to me. And yeah, flipped my foil over, and it was half hanging out. And I'm lucky I didn't snap off the second bolt and lose my setup completely. And I had a phone, but my buddy didn't have a phone. And it was only a like 16-ish K run, which for us is pretty standard now. So we were like, yeah, we'll be sweet, 40 minutes. I'll see you there. And I couldn't communicate to him that I'd come in early. So not only do you need a phone, your buddies need a phone. And that's the best safety you can have. I don't use an EPIRB or anything like that. We sort of just accept a certain amount of risk. But if we were doing anything, really significant, or a channel crossing where anywhere where water's not going to be pushing into shore, then I'd start considering things like an EPIRB. But so like we have to use them. I'm doing EPIRB.
Yeah.
Electronic position. It's just a satellite
like
beacon.
It's
like
a beacon.
SOS.
Oh, for skiing and stuff.
It's just,
okay.
Yeah, it's like a little thing, and you pop the top off, and when you pull that, they send everybody.
Yeah.
So
Arnold shows up.
Yeah, exactly.
In the hell.
Which,
yeah. Okay.
Did you see my story about when they sent the chopper after us?
No.
Because this is sort of a cautionary tale. So a buddy of mine, we were down the south coast of Australia, and we did a late run. It was about 5 o'clock, so the sun was sort of going down. Good wind. Took me a little while to get up. Took him a little while too, but I was sort of 2 minutes behind him. And we did our run. We went back to the caravan park. We're chilling out, and I see the helicopter go over with a spotlight. And I said to my friend, I was like, "Do you think they're looking for us?" And he's like, "Nah, definitely not." So the next day, we went and surfed the same spot that we left from, and some lady comes up to us. She's like, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" Blah blah blah. And then she's like, "Yeah, some paddle boarders went missing last night." And we were like, "Oh, really?" She's like, "Yeah, they went missing at about 6 o'clock at night." And we're like, uh-oh. And she said, "Yeah, the police is down here, like Channel 7's down here, and they're trying to find everybody." And they'd been running the chopper all night pretty much looking for us. They had 2 big search boats out for us. And so somebody reported us missing, and like the news got involved. It was on the national news, and everybody thought we were dead. So we ended up just calling the police like, "Hey, it was us." And, they came down, got a description. But it's happening more frequently than we'd like. Like, it's happening in Melbourne, it's happening in Sydney, because people they don't expect to see people 2 kilometers out to sea. And it's they freak out.
The thing. Yeah, that's the thing.
So it's massive waste of resources. But yeah, there's not much we can do about it. Like, at the end of the day, it's not our fault. Like, we had life jackets on, we had our phones, we did all the safety stuff, but we're sort of, and something I'm thinking about, like, how can we educate the community about the sport that we are and how we exist, so that then if somebody sees us, they won't just assume, "Oh, that person's drowning." Like, it's weird that they think we're drowning when we're moving at 30 Ks an hour. That's what I find very strange.
And you're standing up. Yeah.
But it's when we're paddling up. We look like kooks when everybody looks like a kook when they paddle up. Fair enough. That's the
it's good to know,
but it is
though.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the wilder it is, because it was pretty windy that day, people just assume, like, you don't know what you're doing, and you're some tourist that's, found his way out in the ocean. So
no, man, I got a YouTube channel and it's really successful.
That's right. It's for the gram, bro. Everything for the gram.
Ultra small wetsuit. You're good to go. That'd be fine. Yeah.
So that's the safety stuff. Tell somebody, and if you see a chopper after you finished your run, just check in with the police. Because
good idea.
There's some helicopter pilot out there having the time of their lives, just flying around. Whee! Anyway.
Oh yeah, they're all good points though, and there's things that you only learn by experiencing them, right? Like you wouldn't know otherwise. You would never have probably thought that would have happened, but there's people to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think that is part of the safety thing. Is you want other people to be safe. I don't want people out on a boat in 25 knots looking for me.
That's very true.
We've got to figure out a system where we can sort of notify police or Coast Guard, but they're not in a way that, like, I don't know. We've got to figure it out because it's only growing. There's only more and more of us. So
definitely.
But yeah.
Well, shit, man. Is there anything else you want to cover? We think we talked about everything under the sun, other than your jingle that we're going to come up with. But
yeah, we can. Beautiful. I think if you want to compete with a generic foiling podcast, there we go. Better than generics. No.
Coming from a professional musician and professional YouTuber, who would have thought that? Young age of 34.
Not pro, because don't make any money.
Semi-pro.
We'll go
amateur pro.
I don't know. Amateur. Yeah, amateur. Anyway.
All right, brother.
Sorry, nobody got anything out of this.
No, it's just a big waste of time. But hey, thanks for joining me on a midday out there. And anyways, thanks, man. It was nice to meet you finally, and nice to chat. I'll have to have you back on.
I'll send you my bank details for that 500 you said you'd pay me for this.
Yes, definitely. That's how we do it. we pay to become popular.
Not pesos. No pesos.
No pesos. I'll give you a Canadian then. You get that 30% top up. All right.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this one. And if you want to follow and you want to get to know Dave a little bit more, what's the easiest way for them to reach out? We're pointing fingers.
Find me on OnlyFans at Dave West Foils. No. What am I?
I'm on
Instagram, Dave West Foils. The thick gay category. Is that what you're looking at?
Oh, shit. Cut this part out.
I'm straight. I'm straight. No, this is the goal. I have 3 kids. I'm straight. Nothing wrong with being gay and thick. Whatever.
No, nothing.
No, you got to cut that out. No.
Yeah.
No, Dave West Foils and Dave West Foils on YouTube. So awesome. Like and subscribe.
Perfect. It's from your generation, so it works out all right. You're a younger fella.
How old are you?
41 36. Now.
Are you 41? You're a young looking 41.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Well done.
I'm putting like, it's the first time in a lot of sun, so I gotta, it's the first time in my life I've thought about skincare, because it's like, it's 25 and sunny here every single day. It took me about a month to get used to it. I called back home or whatever, talked to family. I was like, could we not have a day of cloud or a day of rain or a day of something? It's just, they're used to it here. But now it's like a warm blanket every time you walk outside. Yeah, well, that's like for the next 6 months, that's what we have. It's pretty much no wind and it's 25 degrees every single day, like almost without fail. So it's like a different world, bro.
But no wind.
All right, let's finish off with your best surfer impersonation.
Oh,
like that surfer commercial of the guy that got pitted. That's the best.
I want to do Mark Okalupu, but I don't have the jaw for it. As in pro surfer?
No. Like I just want like a standard.
Foil
I
surfer.
Got pitted. This was like the standard, like that guy. Yeah, because you're from the same part of the world.
I saw the lip, bro, and I like came up, so I was like, whoa, and then I said, whoa. There we go.
All in the Wing Life podcast. All right, folks, we'll catch you next time.
Nailed it.